Chinese car brands are on track to dominate the new vehicle market.
Chinese car manufacturer Build Your Dreams has overtaken Elon Musk's Tesla as the world's biggest retailer of electric vehicles.
We're turning to the car industry now because the US and Europe have been going after China recently for unfairly propping up its electric car industry.
Something just happened inside General Motors that exposes the most devastating automotive collapse in modern history. Not a production problem, not a supply chain issue, a complete admission of defeat. GM's China sales collapsed 75% from 4 million vehicles in 2017 to just 562,000 units in 2025, losing 3.4 million annual sales in 8 years. The company lost money in China for most of 2024 before barely breaking even, and analysts now say GM is surviving, not thriving, in the world's largest automotive market. But when GM took $5 billion in write-downs and restructuring charges, while BYD holds 27.2% China NEV market share, what just got exposed is proof that America's largest automaker cannot compete with Chinese manufacturers on technology, pricing, or customer preference, and the dominance GM held for a century evaporated in less than a decade. Before we reveal how GM's actual market share is just 2.1% when excluding Wuling partnership inflation, why CEO Mary Barra's race to the bottom excuse collapses when Chinese manufacturers earn higher margins, and how GM's turnaround plan depends entirely on licensing Chinese technology, make sure you're subscribed to Daily Car Talks and all notifications are turned on. Because what GM just admitted isn't that Chinese manufacturers received unfair subsidies. It's complete competitive failure against companies that build better EVs for less money while earning superior profits. Here is what just happened in China that proves GM cannot compete. GM's China sales peaked at 4 million vehicles in 2017 when the company dominated as China's best-selling foreign automaker. 8 years later, GM sold just 562,000 units, a 75% collapse. That's not market correction, that's elimination. China was GM's top sales market from 2010 to 2023. Now it's a money-losing operation requiring billions in restructuring just to survive. Think about what analyst Bill Russo said about GM's position. They're surviving, not thriving. That's the founder of Shanghai-based Automobility Limited describing America's largest automaker. When analysts use survival language, they're signaling the competitive gap is unbridgeable. Now here is what GM's market share numbers actually hide. GM reported 7.1% China market share, but analyst Bill Russo exposed that GM inflates numbers by including SEC GM Wuling mini EV sales. Excluding Wuling, GM brands represent just 2.1% of China's passenger market, 2.1% actual share versus 7.1% claimed. When your real market share drops from 11% to 2% in 4 years, you've been eliminated from relevance. Here is who took GM's lost sales. BYD holds 27.2% of China's NEV market with 3.48 million units sold. Geely captured 12.4%. Every lost GM sale went to Chinese manufacturers offering better technology at lower prices. Think about what CEO Mary Barra said that reveals GM's misunderstanding. It has become a race to the bottom with pricing, but BYD achieved 20% gross margins selling EVs for $24,000 that GM can't profitably build for $40,000. If Chinese manufacturers race to the bottom while earning better margins than GM, the problem is GM's cost structure. Here is what analyst Eugene Xiao said when asked if GM's EVs compete with Chinese brands. The answer is, to be honest at this point, no. Not catching up? No. That's unambiguous. GM's EVs aren't competitive on merit. Now think about what makes GM uncompetitive. Analyst Bill Russo explained, Chinese companies are further evolved not only in electrification, but also the reconfiguration of the car as a smart device. That is a total swing and miss that multinational car makers just didn't get. Chinese buyers expect integrated smart devices. GM offers traditional cars with electric motors. Here is what GM spent trying to fix the collapse. GM disclosed $5 billion in write-downs and restructuring charges, plus $2.7 billion in additional restructuring, 7.7 billion total, not building competitive technology, but writing down failures. That capital could have built BYD's 80% vertical integration. Instead, it bought survival. Think about GM's latest turnaround plan. In March 2026, SAIC GM President Liu Xiao presented a 3-year plan as their joint venture contract approaches June 2027 expiration. The strategy deploys China-developed software-defined systems. GM's turnaround depends on Chinese technology because GM cannot develop competitive software independently. Here's the devastating admission. SAIC GM will invest $1.4 billion using China-specific Xiaoyao architecture with Chinese battery technology achieving 1,000-volt charging and 621-mile range. Chinese architecture, Chinese batteries, Chinese charging. GM abandoned American automotive technology entirely and licenses Chinese systems because that's the only path to competitive products. Now here is why turnaround is nearly impossible. The Cadillac Vistique arriving late April features LiDAR and ADAS co-developed with Chinese autonomous company Momenta. GM outsources to Chinese suppliers while BYD develops proprietary systems in-house. But over 64% of market controlled by top 6 Chinese manufacturers, all developing technology internally while improving faster than GM integrates borrowed systems. Think about the timeline. 3-year plan with contract expiring. June 2027 gives GM 16 months to reverse 75% collapse. But Chinese NEV market reached 55% share. Electric already overtook gasoline. GM's turnaround depends on succeeding where they're weakest against competitors who already won. 16 months to overcome decade of failure. That's not turnaround, that's countdown. Here's what happened to other foreign brands. Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi are suspending production at Chinese plants. Volkswagen cited tough competition as factor in poor performance. Porsche expects sales to drop 1/3 after 26% decline. Volkswagen and Stellantis signing partnerships with Chinese companies for EV expertise. Every foreign automaker, American, Japanese, German, losing massive share simultaneously. This isn't GM-specific failure. This is systemic Western automotive collapse against Chinese competition. Now here is what GM CEO cannot explain. When Canada announced allowing 49,000 Chinese EVs annually at 6.1% tariff, Mary Barra told Wall Street Journal she can't explain why Canada would welcome Chinese vehicles. Can't explain. GM's CEO cannot comprehend why Canada permits consumer access to affordable EVs from manufacturers dominating world's largest market. The answer is obvious. Canadian buyers want affordable EVs, and GM doesn't make any. Think about the entitlement. GM lost 75% of China's sales because Chinese consumers chose superior products. Now Barra acts bewildered that Canada won't protect GM from same competition. She wants Canadian buyers denied access because GM cannot compete on merit. When your strategy depends on government blocking superior products, you've abandoned capitalism. Here's what GM's North American results reveal. GM recorded $3.1 billion in tariff hits from 25% tariffs protecting American manufacturers. Despite that protection, GM employees received smaller bonuses because the company missed financial targets. Even with tariff protection preventing Chinese competition, GM underperformed. What happens when protection disappears? Think about what analyst Dan Ives said about why GM must keep fighting. They have to continue to have a foothold in China. Have to, not want to. Remaining globally competitive requires Chinese presence because China drives EV innovation, battery technology, and autonomous systems. Lose China and you lose access to where automotive future is built. GM already lost meaningful share. Now they fight to maintain token presence licensing technologies, hoping to compete elsewhere. Now here is what China collapse previews for North America. Ford CEO called Chinese EVs existential threat. Tesla's Elon Musk stated Chinese companies would demolish most other car companies without trade barriers. BYD expects to sell 1.3 million vehicles outside China in 2026, 24% increase. When Canadian, Mexican, European, and American markets open to Chinese EVs, GM faces same competition that destroyed China position everywhere simultaneously. Here is what Ford and GM now consider. Both confirmed they're partnering with other companies to cut costs. Mary Barra stated, If there's ways we can partner with others and be more efficient with R&D, we're all in. All in on partnerships because independent R&D cannot match Chinese pace. That's admission of defeat before competition reaches North America. Think about what that means. BorgWarner, supplier to Ford and GM, partnered with BYD subsidiary using Chinese battery technology. American suppliers partner with Chinese manufacturers because that's where leading technology exists. When your supply chain licenses Chinese batteries, you lost the battery race determining EV competitiveness. Now here is the global data. Detroit's Big Three fell from 21.4% global share in 2019 to 15.7% in 2025. Meanwhile, BYD and Geely grew from under 3% to 11.1%. Chinese manufacturers gained 8 points while American Big Three lost 6. At current trajectory, Chinese manufacturers overtake American Big Three by 2028. One thing is absolutely certain. GM's China sales collapsed 75% from 4 million to 562,000. GM's actual share is 2.1% excluding Wuling. Analysts say GM is surviving, not thriving. BYD holds 27.2% while Geely captures 12.4%. Independent analysts concluded GM EVs cannot compete. GM took $7.7 billion in write-downs. GM's turnaround depends on licensing Chinese technology. Contract expires June 2027, with 16 months to reverse decade of failure. All foreign automakers losing share simultaneously. What happens when same Chinese competition enters North America without tariff protection? Can GM survive losing 98% of China market while depending on government blocking Chinese products? Will licensing Chinese technology make GM competitive or just delay obsolescence? And if America's largest automaker admits they cannot develop competitive EVs, what does that reveal about whether Western automotive can survive electrification without permanent protectionism? Stay tuned.